The United Nations votes in a new resolution to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The resolution says that the largely ineffective body deplores Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Oh, goody. 35 members, including Russia's ally China, abstained from the vote. For more on this, let's bring in Major Glenn Ignacio, retired Air Force Special Operations Commander. I keep on trying to promote you. You know, I think I introduced you as Major General as we're teasing. Dude, I know, right? I just put you up 4 ranks. I mean, again, Major, it's nice to have you here. I am not impressed with symbolic votes. Are you, Major?
No, not at all. I mean, we hear a lot of words from everybody around the world these days, politicians, leaders, et cetera, and action's really what's going to make the difference here. And that's what we really need is action. And that's the one thing that Putin knows is he knows strength, he knows action, and he knows also how to play propaganda.
Yeah, big shocker here. China is not going to support sanctions against their ally, Russia. Whoo, big shock. But I'm more worried about the U.S. ally, the free nation of Taiwan. Given Biden's and the Democrats' lack of commitment to our allies and their lack of commitment to freedom and liberty, do you think Taiwan should be worried tonight?
I think Taiwan should be worried. Absolutely. I mean, when I saw the performance of what we have in our current leaders in the White House, and of course Afghanistan has sent internationally that we are weak in that perspective of executing correctly. I always thought that if anything was going to happen in Taiwan, it was going to happen in this administration because of the lack of strength and backbone. Now, the interesting part about the actions in Ukraine is, Putin is a brilliant man and a tactician, and I think he's on an operational pause right now for a reason. I believe he is definitely surprised from the international impact of sanctions and how the entire world has reacted to his operations. I believe China is definitely watching that. Of course, they are the ones that are backing up Russia. And I believe based on what occurs is going to be, they're planning for what they're going to do in Taiwan. But this seems to be a great time to stage this type of operation, have everybody distracted on 2 different sides of the globe.
Well, you took me where I wanted to go because I want to get back to Ukraine. What do you think Putin's broader strategy is? He seems to be meeting a lot more resistance, as you articulated, than he probably anticipated. In your military view, can Ukraine win this without any help from the outside world, with just getting supplies of weapons, or are they going to need some other type of help?
Honestly, I love the Ukrainian effort. I love the people that are really standing behind their home and to defend their home. But let's take a look at something militarily. Let's look at numbers. Okay, Russia has 1,000 fighter jets. Ukraine has about 70. Russia has about 500 attack aircraft. Ukraine has about 30. Ukraine has about 2,000 helicopters. Russia has about 5,000. And troop size, you have 1 million troops in Russia with 3 million in reserves. You have 250,000 troops with 250,000 reserves in Ukraine. The numbers just don't match up. The other thing that I really want people to watch, because a lot of people focus tactically, but let's look at the big picture here. Putin plays a long game. He always has. And if you look at the history of Iraq, Afghanistan, we've been able to take those countries in a very short period of time, a couple of weeks. I believe that he is playing the long game for a couple of reasons. I think he's giving it a chance for the civilians to get out of the country and then be able to go in and occupy the country and strike them accordingly. They use a lot of their precision weapons in Syria already, so they don't have that many of them. But remember, every person that picks up an arm in the country, civilian or not, becomes a lawful combatant. So I believe this pause is to get people out, move his troops in, and be able to take this and violently rage into Ukraine. And if you focus, he's occupying areas where the oil reserves are and the pipelines are.
Major, I've only got a minute left. Before we run out of that time, Ukraine has asked for the West to put in a no-fly zone, NATO. The United States said, no, we're not going to do that. Do you think a no-fly zone would be a good idea? And if not, what should the United States or NATO be doing once we get maybe a real leader in the United States?
Well, tying in NATO and UN, what you brought in before, we had the no-fly zone in Iraq, North and South, Northern Southern Watch, and that was in conjunction with the UN backing that up. If it's purely NATO, it'll be looked at as an act of war from Russia. And imagine if a NATO aircraft shot down a Russian aircraft, that's an act of war. It'll just trigger things, and it gives Putin an opportunity to even react more violently. If the UN can take action and do something there as a unified body and unite force, that would be better. But it's a very dangerous thing if it was NATO, because it would be an act of war.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, and NATO acting, not NATO, but the United Nations acting would be an amazing thing to see. Doesn't happen very often. Retired Major Glenn Ignacio, thank you, sir. Appreciate the time. Straight ahead, Dear Leader now says,